What up, cucks? At some point, somewhere, I think it was on Monday Night Raw, they announced that there's, oh, that's what it was. On Monday Night Raw, they announced that the draft is coming in late April, right? They announced it during the Ilya Dragunov-Nakamura match, which nobody gave a fuck about because Ilya Dragunov is now going to declare for the draft, which of course means Trick Williams is going to beat him for the title at some point next week or the week after that, whatever the fuck they wrestle next. Unless it's maybe Carmelo Hayes. Who the fuck cares? Or maybe it already happened. I didn't watch NXT, but I don't think it happened. Right? So the draft is happening, and we're going to get the shuffling again. Now, the last time the draft happened, it was a complete waste of time. The time before that, it was a complete waste of time. There is only one way to have the draft make sense, and I'm going to spell it out for you right now. It's really, really simple. The most important element of the draft is brand exclusivity. Right? Meaning, not only do I have to tune in to Fridays to see, I don't know, Roman Reigns, right? But that I have to tune in to SmackDown exclusive premium events or pay-per-views that feature SmackDown matches, right? Now, the problem with this is you can't do this because there is a complete lack of star power, right? Like in every pay-per-view, you're going to need, you know, your main eventer from SmackDown and your main eventer from Raw. Otherwise, the matches are going to involve like bullshit like Katana Chance versus like Liv Morgan for some bullshit, right? Nobody wants to see that shit. So, the way that this can be done is quite simple, right? Obviously, Cody Rhodes is going to be drafted to Raw. This is like only a retard wouldn't see this coming. The entire point of this draft is to bring Cody Rhodes in the main title to Raw and to push Judgment Day if they are still together, but at least Damian Priest to SmackDown where he's going to be the SmackDown champion, right? Now, the problem here is very obvious. If the SmackDown champion is Damian Priest, right? That is obviously the jobber title. Like, I don't think anybody can dispute that anymore. Like, if Cody Rhodes had won the World Heavyweight title, he wouldn't have gotten the reception that he got from Triple H. Everybody knows. So, the B title is going to go where it belongs, the B show. And don't get me wrong, I'm a SmackDown guy through and through, but it's going to go to the B show, right? Now, there's one benefit that can come from this, right? They can do what they used to do in the past. And that is make SmackDown kind of the NXT, right? Raw is where everyone wants to be. SmackDown is where you go to settle, right? SmackDown has 2 or 3 stars and a bunch of up-and-comers, right? And as a result, SmackDown was better because you were able to see these up-and-comers grow, right? Like Edge, Rey Mysterio, Cena, right? And then eventually, SmackDown also pushed Booker T, who was a jobber until he became King Booker, basically, in WWE. Right? They pushed Booker T. They pushed so many wrestlers. Benoit, like everyone that was good would go to SmackDown first and then they would transition to Raw, right? And once they got boring again, they'd get thrown to SmackDown or maybe ECW, right? So that's how it needs to be again, right? And of course, SmackDown always had a few stars. Like JBL was on SmackDown, like historically, for a long time. Batista became like a mainstay in SmackDown. Edge eventually became like the SmackDown guy. Del Rio was introduced in SmackDown and was pushed, but he was still kind of like a big deal when he was introduced, right? That's how the format should be. So Damian Priest can be the jobber champion on the jobber show. But by segregating the competition so that Damian Priest has to defend it only against SmackDown people, and ipso facto, the SmackDown wrestlers can only challenge Damian Priest unless they win the Rumble, then you automatically give prestige to Damian Priest's title. So, for example, let's say you have an up-and-coming guy like Braun Breaker, right? Let's say Braun Breaker ends up on SmackDown. Well, Braun Breaker cannot go and squash Cody Rhodes because Cody Rhodes is on Raw. So that title is now automatically outside the purview of Braun Breaker, right? He can only challenge for the bullshit title. So Braun Breaker then challenges Damian Priest for the bullshit title, and in my opinion, he should just squash Damian Priest in like 10 seconds, right? Meanwhile, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, whoever the hell you want to keep on Raw, they can now focus only on the Cody Rhodes title because they don't have the capacity to challenge Damian Priest anymore, right? Then, over time, right, if you have the SmackDown champion be someone awesome that gets over, then you can get that title over as well. This should be the first step and the first goal of WWE in the quote-unquote Triple H era, right? The first goal is to, number one, get that bullshit title over because you are now taking a huge gamble with Cody Rhodes, right? Cookie Rhodes is going to get stale, and I believe that if Cookie Rhodes is the main guy on Raw, and you put, like, not Damian Priest, because he sucks, but, like, if you put, like, Braun Breaker on SmackDown, I think SmackDown is going to be seen as the real A show, right? Like, people are going to look forward to SmackDown more, just like at all times, basically, right? SmackDown was always better than Raw. Like, Raw had, like, Triple H, and SmackDown had, like, JBL and Cena, and, you know, eventually Booker T, Batista. SmackDown was always more entertaining. Guerrero, fucking Benoit, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar. SmackDown always had the better guys, right? Undertaker eventually. Like, SmackDown was always better than Raw. Raw was just a show that they wanted to keep pushing, right? It was like Raw was Triple H's show, and everyone else was like 100 times better than Triple H was on SmackDown, right? And there was a few people that eventually made it to Raw, like Cena. Of course, he became like a big-time Raw guy. Orton, Shawn Michaels, Triple H stayed around, you know, all that shit. But the truth is, Cuts, the truth is that at the end of the day, back then the drafts felt like a big deal. And the primary reason why they felt like a big deal was because, let's say Batista clears the roster, right? Now, it's time for the draft, right? Usually they wouldn't trade champions, so Batista would stay, let's say, as the champion, and you'd have John Cena. John Cena beat everybody, Batista beat everybody. Now, let's give it a swap-a-roo. There was one draft where Kurt Angle was drafted to Raw, and he immediately challenges John Cena, right? You're like, oh, holy shit, that's great, right? Now we can see John Cena versus Kurt Angle again for the title, right? Because, yeah, maybe Kurt Angle cannot beat Batista, but maybe he can beat John Cena, right? That was exciting, right? And the same thing could apply to all levels, to the tag team level, to the mid-card level, and to the women's level, right? The segregation of the roster was what created a lot of stars, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to need several main eventers on each show. Now, there's no main eventers, really. Like, Roman Reigns is gone. Lesnar's gone. Like, Cody Rhodes is a main eventer just by virtue of the fact that he main evented WrestleMania, but he's not really a main eventer, right? Like, here's what I mean. If Cody Rhodes is the champion, and let's say it's him against, I don't know, fucking The Miz, right? That's his first opponent. It's going to be someone like that. It's going to be someone that he's going to beat easily, right? So, let's say it's going to be him versus The Miz, right? Let's just say for the sake of argument. If, for example, that month, Undertaker decides to come back, Undertaker's going to be in the main event, and Cody Rhodes is going to be in the opening match or in the co-main event. Same thing, if The Rock decides to come back and wrestle anybody, The Rock's going to be in the main event. Cena's going to be in the main event. If Roman Reigns decides to come back, he's going to be in the main event, right? Because Cody Rhodes is not a legitimate main eventer, and is not a legitimate champion. Now, I know you're thinking, well, of course Undertaker's going to take his spot if he comes back. No, not of course, Cucks. Not of course. Because there was a point where Undertaker was already a legend. Decade of destruction. But he wasn't even in the main event then. Kurt Angle was in the main event, right? There was a point where John Cena was in the main event, and people would come back, but nobody would put them in the main event over Cena, right? It was just Cena, motherfucks. So you see what I'm saying? Only people like Cody Rhodes and CM Punk get bumped. So in order to build new main eventers, the first and most obvious thing that needs to be done is to establish the new title as a credible title with a credible champion, not Damian Priest. Or if you want to, if Damian Priest is that dude, just push Damian Priest. Just have him cleanly beat, like, I don't know, Jey Uso 100 times. Have him cleanly beat Drew McIntyre, right? But that's about it. There's nobody else that's been pushed at all that he can, like, if, you know what I mean? Like, if Damian Priest beats, like, Kevin Owens, like, he's not made by doing that, right? Everybody beats Kevin Owens. Like, Kevin Owens has lost to literally everybody in the company, you know? So you need to push that title first, and then at the same time, you need to establish Raw as the primary show again, because for a long time, it was SmackDown by virtue of Roman Reigns being there. You can establish Raw as the primary show. Cody's not going to end up on SmackDown. Everybody knows that. And then, as a result, you can create new hierarchies from the new people that are going to be in the rosters, right? So, for example, one thing that would happen all the time is every draft, they would take like a jobber from one show, right? And then that person just wouldn't be a jobber anymore in the other show, right? They might become like a mid-card champion in the other show. Like, the draft would happen, and all of a sudden, like, you know, Mr. Kennedy goes from mid-carder to, like, quasi-main eventer or something like that, right? That's the way you need to handle the draft. But they're probably not going to do all that, so everything I just said is probably in vain. Probably what's going to happen is going to be the same shit, right? They're going to just, like, continue to co-brand the pay-per-views and have, like, Cody Rhodes. I honestly, like, I still don't think Cody Rhodes is going to wrestle that much. Like, I definitely see Damian Priest, you know, like, defending the title. But let's be real. Like, it's like, Damian Priest is a transitional champion. This guy's not going to be main eventing pay-per-views. Like, have you lost your mind? Damian Priest in the main event? No one's going to watch. Oh, shit, it's Damian Priest versus Finn Balor in the main event? No, they're not going to be the main event. What's going to happen is they're going to have, like, Charlotte come back, and Charlotte's going to be the main event over these two jobbers. You see what I'm saying? So that's what needs to happen. Another thing that needs to happen during this draft is Logan Paul needs to be drafted to Raw, obviously, and he needs to be like a main star on Raw, right? Logan Paul being on SmackDown is a waste. Gunther is the jobber, or now it's Sami Zayn, right? Gunther shouldn't be on Raw. Gunther should be on SmackDown, and Logan Paul should be on Raw because one of them is a draw and the other one is a fat jobber. So there you have it, cucks. And those are the two things that need to happen immediately. Push the titles and push Logan Paul. I can't believe I'm fucking saying this. Logan Paul is the only guy in this company who feels like a star. That's all I gotta say, cuckolds.